Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Polity pages. It's been almost 2 months, December 23rd, as of recording this. This one's going to go up. It's going to be the first video of the new year. I think January 2nd. We're doing Brave New World today. Start the new year off with Brave New World. Why not? It is my favorite of the two we're doing. I've been gone for a while. Since October 31st. I was just looking at the last video. So much has happened since then. Donald Trump was reelected our president. That healthcare guy got assassinated, and we learned that the internet loves murderers. So that's great. But what's new? I've been gone so long. I did this whole speech. Both episodes, I think, where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna do it every Tuesday, Thursday, and I just haven't. Not for any particular reason, even. It's just putting those first two videos up was so frustrating because I had to leave my PC on all night because I was living with my grandparents then, and they live in the middle of nowhere, really bad satellite internet. So I couldn't. It was inoperable, so to say. It was frustratingly slow, and I just didn't want to do it. But now, I'm living in my own apartment. As you can see, I'm in the living room because we're still kind of unpacking. Still, me and my fiance, still unpacking, still moving in. I don't really have a setup yet, but I have a few good ideas. I think I could get like one of those Walmart cubicle shelves, the ones, and like I could just move it there whenever I record and put little knickknacks on it or whatever, and it'd be kind of cool. But till then, this is what you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with looking at my couch, the candle, my fiance's Betsy Ross flag, and triggered by Donald Trump Jr. because I think it looks kind of cool back there. Right next to my router. But yeah, living in my own apartment, we have like really good internet here. I've been doing like a lot of computer gaming because that's something I could never do at my grandparents' house. I had to do like outside stuff and live a happy life. But now I'm a man of the web, so to say. So really, without further ado, I want to get back into this, and I want to start doing this consistently. I'm on winter break from school right now, so I have no excuse to not just record every day that my fiance is at work, and just have a bunch set up, I guess, for the year, so I can at least do a couple episodes, and then maybe that'll kind of motivate me to keep doing it. Because I really didn't think anyone was gonna watch this, but I was looking at the old episodes this morning, and they have like 30-something views, like better than some other videos I've got, better than some of my shorts when I was trying to do my own thing, just like kind of be a lifestyle channel or whatever. But so I also got a couple comments. This is this one guy that goes to the high school who I haven't really talked to since middle school, and I guess he's still subscribed to this channel. And he'll come up to me in the hallway and be like, "Hey man, when's chapter 2 coming out?" He also told me to get rid of the music, so that's why there's no music in the background of this one. And I was really proud of that music. I spent hours trying to manipulate an AI model to generate it and then download it without having to like pay the like subscription fee or whatever. And by that I mean I just recorded it with OBS and stole it. I think that might be illegal, but I don't know, and I don't care. It's a robot. It doesn't have a soul. So yeah, we're rocking. We're back at it. I'm gonna try and be consistent, which I should be much more motivated to do that, because this episode should go up in a matter of minutes or even like a couple hours. That's so infinitely faster than what it was before. I can upload to Spotify and YouTube just, relatively instantly. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get back into it and just chill with me and read this book with me. Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. So if you remember where we were in chapter 1, They were talking about, they were describing the lab where they grow the babies and all that stuff. And they were going somewhere. Where are they going now? They're going to the decanting room, the birthing room, so to say, where they're making the babies. So I'm just gonna start reading chapter 2. I'm gonna keep doing the annoying crap where I pause and like analyze everything, because why not? Because then it's like free use or whatever. We're gonna get into it. Chapter 2. Mr. Foster was left in the decanting room. The DHC and his students stepped into the nearest lift and were carried up to the 5th floor. Mr. Foster, was that the like science man? I think that was a science man that was like explaining everything to these students. So Mr. Foster's alone in the decanting room, I guess. And they're going to the 5th floor. Infant nurseries, Neo-Pavlovian Conditioning rooms, announced the notice board. The director opened a door. They were in a large, bare room, very bright and sunny, for the whole of the southern wall was a single window. Half a dozen nurses, trousered and jacketed in the regulation white viscose linen uniform, their hair aseptically hidden under white caps, were engaged in setting out bowls of roses in a long row across the floor. Big bowls packed tight with blossom, thousands of petals, ripe blown and silkily smooth, like the cheeks of innumerable little cherubs. But of cherubs in that bright light, not exclusively pink and Aryan, but also luminously Chinese, also Mexican, also apoplectic with too much blowing of celestial trumpets, also pale as death, pale with the posthumous whiteness of marble. So, like, are some of the babies dead? Are those, like, the scientific miscarriages? Is that what they're saying? Or are they the, like, albino people that work in the dark lab? I don't know. But it's neat how it mentions that there's, like, an extreme diversity of races. They're not all pink and Aryan. So it's like they're all scientific twins, but they're also, like, they're diverse peoples, so to say. So that's just something you wouldn't think of. You think, like, in this society, everyone would be homogenous. That's how I would think if I was, like, a super dictator of the world. I would be like, everyone needs to look the same, because then no conflict would arise, I guess. But no, they got the Chinese, they got the Mexicans, and luminously Chinese. Whatever that means. I don't know how you can be luminously Chinese. But so that's neat. The description of this room, whole southern wall is a window. Almost like they don't have lights. I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting at. Let's just keep reading. The nurses stiffened to attention as the DHC came in. "Set out the books," he said curtly. In silence, the nurses obeyed his command. Between the rose bowls, the books were duly set out. A row of nursery quartos opened invitingly, each at some gaily colored image of beast or fish or bird. Alright, so they got like picture books setting out and rose bowls. So I'm getting the idea that this room is like very inviting. I remember this. They mentioned Neo-Pavlovian. There's some sort of conditioning involved here. I don't exactly remember, but I know they're either training like epsilons to hate pretty things, so that they're training someone to not like these pretty things, so that they'll work better or something. They'll explain it. I'm just trying to remember. So, now bring in the children. They hurried out of the room and returned in a minute or two, each pushing a kind of tall, dumb waiter laden on its 4 wire-netted shelves with 8-month-old babies, all exactly alike. A Bokanovsky group, it was evident. And all, since their caste was Delta, dressed in khaki. So we're not at epsilon. We're with the deltas, which are slightly more intelligent than epsilons. Very slightly. Because if you'll remember from the first chapter, I know it's been 2 months, alphas are like scientists and crap. And was it betas are like kind of normal average people, maybe? And like Charlies are the like blue collared class, maybe? And then deltas are tarded, and epsilons are super tarded. So, like, it was the epsilons are like as mentally mature as an 8-year-old, but sexually mature at 8 years old. There's something like that, but there's that progression of intelligence and mental capacity. So we've got deltas coming in, a bunch of 8-month-old babies. I wonder what the significance of them being 8 months old is, because they do this they do the conditioning, like throughout their development. So we get to see what they do to the 8-month-olds here. 8-month-olds. So put them down on the floor. The infants were unloaded. Now turn them so that they can see the flowers and books. Turned, the babies at once fell silent, then began to crawl towards those clusters of sleek colors, those shapes so gay and brilliant on the white pages. As they approached, the sun came out of a momentary eclipse behind a cloud. The roses flamed up as though with a sudden passion from within. A new and profound significance seemed to suffuse the shining pages of the books. From the ranks of the crawling babies came little squeals of excitement, gurgles and twitterings of pleasures. I really love how this book does description. That's like, so you really get to understand these babies are like, they're so jovial, they're so excited to see colors. I wonder why he's putting so much emphasis on them seeing colors. It's almost like what I said about conditioning is about to be true. But yeah, you got just... Did it say how many? I imagine it's like dozens, because it's a Volkanovsky group. I think it was like 80-something or 100-something. I don't remember, but a lot. You got a lot of babies. A lot of 8-month-olds. They're crawling towards these colors. They're deltas. So all they know is colors. And let's see what happens. The director rubbed his hands, Pedo. Excellent, he said. It might almost have been done on purpose. What's he mean by that? The swiftest crawlers were already at their goal. Small hands reached out uncertainly, touched, grasped, unpetaling the transfigured roses, crumpling the illuminated pages of the books. The director waited until all were happily busy. Then, watch carefully, he said, and lifting his hand, he gave the signal. So you got these little babes, they're touching up on the books because they're colorful. And the director's gonna do something to them. Is he gonna kill them? No. The head nurse, who was standing by a switchboard at the other end of the room, pressed down a little lever. There was a violent explosion, shriller and ever shriller. A siren shrieked. Alarm bells maddeningly sounded. The children started, screamed. Their faces were distorted with terror. So they're getting them to associate the colors with alarms blaring, with the sound of explosions, with sirens shrieking. So I was right. They are conditioning them to not like these pretty things. And that is mentioned later in the novel with the 2 alpha class people. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but it's a fact of life for these people that they don't like pretty things. Traditionally pretty things. They have their own idea of what's pretty, and it's messed up. I haven't cussed yet this video. I'm proud. And now, the director shouted, for the noise was deafening. Oh yeah, he has to scream over these alarm bells and whatever. Now we proceed to rub in the lesson with a mild electric shock. He waved his hand again, and the head nurse pressed a second lever. The screaming of the babies suddenly changed its tone. There was something desperate, almost insane about the sharp, spasmodic yelps to which they now gave utterance. Their little bodies twitched and stiffened. Their limbs moved jerkily as if to the tug of unseen wires. I really wonder how they, like, control that. Because, do they have, like, electrodes hooked up to the babies? That's what would make sense, so as you don't accidentally arc through their heart and kill them. I get that I'm overanalyzing it, and they're just electrocuting them, man. It's no big deal. But if they're insinuating that it's almost like an anode as a floor, and they have like a cathode on the ceiling or some crap, and it's just randomly arcing these babies, they'd be dead, because But I'm gonna assume there's some semblance of control. But they're electrocuting these babies, and I wonder why it's like a two-step process, because conditioning should be like you do the behavior and then instantly whatever consequences should come. Because now I wonder if they are going to associate electric shock with alarm bells and whatever. So I think Aldis's like understanding of conditioning is a little lackadaisical, but this was written like before World War II or in World War II. I don't care. It was written like when Pavlov's theories were developing, pretty much. So I don't blame him for not really getting it, but it's still it's still fascinating concept that we're conditioning these babies to not like beautiful things. What's the reason for that? Why would you not want a society of people who like beautiful things? I think that's something we need in society, is people who look for beauty, people who see nature as beautiful. But as we're going to see in this book, they don't have so much nature to begin with. And I just analyzed something that was answered in the next freaking paragraph. We can electrify that whole strip of floor, bawled the director in explanation. But that's enough, he signaled to the nurse. So that wouldn't work in real life. I hate to be that guy, but you can't just electrify a strip of floor. Because in theory, if you have like strips of hot and neutral, then you could make connection when you touch it. But then what if like if a baby puts his left hand on the hot side and his right hand on the neutral side, his heart's gonna explode and he will die. If it's enough current to violently jerk their muscles, they will die. You die with as little as I think like 50 milliamps of current, which is not a significant amount as far as I think. But that's besides the point. I'm just a dork. But so they have an electrified floor. They're putting babies on. They're putting on air raid sirens because they're touching these pretty pictures. That's the gist of that. The explosions ceased. The bells stopped ringing. The shriek of the sirens died down from tone to tone into silence. Because like sirens, they spin. That's where they get the sound from. So like as it slows down spinning, it gets like a lower tone to tone. The stiffly twitching bodies relaxed, and what had become the sob and yelp of infant maniacs broadened out once more into a normal howl of ordinary terror. That sentence goes hard. The sob and yelp of infant maniacs broadened out once more into a normal howl of ordinary terror. If that's not a definition of this book, and the climax to the end, that pungent. What they say when I was at camp? It'll come to me. Offer them the flowers and the books again. The nurses obeyed, but at the approach of the roses, at the mere sight of those gaily colored images of pussy and cock-a-doodle-doo, the ba-ba black sheep, the infants shrank away in horror. The volume of their howling suddenly increased. I don't think that you would elicit that response from just one instance, but it's something that would have to be stretched out. If I walked up to, I don't know, I want to go eat an apple, I don't know, let's say, go and eat an apple, and then I get electrocuted for 5 minutes straight, I'd probably go try the apple again. If I get electrocuted again, I'd be like, okay, I'm not gonna go to that apple. But even then, I don't think an apple alone would frighten a person at that point. But again, this is a condensed snapshot. Maybe this was the breaking point for these babies, but it's just interesting theories of conditioning that are presented. It's not necessarily meant to be accurate. It's science fiction. It's fascinating, is what it is. So yeah, now they don't like animals. They don't like animal pictures. Observe, said the director triumphantly. Observe. Books and loud noises, flowers and electric shocks. Already in the infant mind, these couples were compromisingly linked. And after 200 repetitions of the same or a similar lesson, would be wedded indissolubly, not able to be dissolved. What man has joined, nature is powerless to put asunder. That's a bastardization of I want to say it's like a quote, a verse from Psalms or maybe Romans. I don't exactly know, but it's like what God has joined, no man can separate. Talking about marriage and why divorce doesn't exist. Period. They're saying what man has joined, nature is powerless to put asunder. I don't think I caught that the first time I read this, because they worship Henry Ford, essentially. Ford is their god. And science is their god. Kind of like the modern day left. So that bastardization of a Bible verse is so palpable. That's the word I was looking for earlier. It's just so key to what this book is trying to get across, And and he also did answer the question that maybe this isn't their first lesson, their first instance of conditioning, because it says after 200 repetitions of the same or similar lesson would be wedded indissolubly. So they definitely, he understands the concept that, you have to condition them multiple times. So I keep going off on these tangents about why this book is wrong, and then it just answers the question for me and says, yeah, I get it. Pretty much. They'll grow up with what the psychologists used to call an instinctive hatred of books and flowers. Reflexes unalterably conditioned. They'll be safe from books and botany all their lives. The director turned to his nurses. Take them away again. So essentially, he's training them to not like certain professions, to not like certain activities because their caste prohibits it. Because they shouldn't be doing these things as deltas. I wonder, I vaguely remember that they also condition them to enjoy tasks, activities, jobs that their caste should be doing. I think I remember them giving an epsilon a wrench to kind of condition them to be maintenance people. So that's what he's saying there. The instinctive hatred of books and flowers. They'll be safe from botany. Which I assume as a delta they wouldn't understand botany to begin with. Still yelling, the khaki babies were loaded onto their dumb waiters and wheeled out. leaving behind them the smell of sour milk and a most welcome silence. Did they they crapped themselves is what the sour milk comes from? Or do the babies just smell like sour milk in this world? They need a bath. One of the students held up his hand, and though he could see quite well why you couldn't have lower caste people wasting the community's time over books, and that there was always the risk of their reading something what might undesirably decondition one of their reflexes, yet, well, he couldn't understand about the flowers. Why go to the trouble of making it psychologically impossible for deltas to like flowers? Good question. But he also did, he mentioned something here. Lower caste people wasting the community's time over books. Community is with a capital C. Figured I should mention that. And that they might read something that would decondition one of their reflexes. Deconditioning is also something that comes up in this book a couple of times. Deconditioning, improper conditioning, someone who just doesn't have conditioning. You keep that sort of theme in your mind as we go through this. So, why do we want it psychologically impossible for deltas to like flowers? So patiently, the DHC explained, if the children were made to scream at the sight of a rose, that was on grounds of high economic policy. Not so very long ago, a century or thereabouts, gammas, deltas, and even epsilons had been conditioned to like flowers. Flowers in particular, and wild nature in general. The idea was to make them want to be going out into the country at every available opportunity, and so compel them to consume transport. Okay, so they're talking about conditioning from an economic standpoint. We're conditioning these people to consume transport, but now that they're hating on flowers and whatnot, they're not going to consume transport? Where's it going with this? And didn't they consume transport? Asked the student. Quite a lot, the DHC replied, but nothing else. Primroses and landscapes, he pointed out, have one grave defect. They are gratuitous. A love of nature keeps no factories busy. It was decided to abolish the love of nature, at any rate among the lower classes. To abolish the love of nature, but not the tendency to consume transport. For of course it was essential that they should keep on going to the country, even though they hated it. The problem was to find an economically sounder reason for consuming transport than a mere affection for primroses and landscapes. It was duly found. So, that's a point I was kind of alluding to earlier. A love of nature keeps no factories busy. They don't value nature. They don't value our natural resources. They don't value, like conservation. They don't. I assume there aren't many hunters in this book. People that just go out, sit in nature for hours until, like a deer comes by and they shoot it. Or I don't think fishing is a thing. Or hiking probably isn't much of a thing in this world, this brave new world. So, but he also mentions they need an economically sound reason for consuming transport than just because they like it. And it says it was duly found. How'd they find it? We condition the masses to hate the country, referring to like a rural area, concluded the director. But simultaneously, we condition them to love all country sports, like hunting. At the same time, we see to it that all country sports shall entail the use of elaborate apparatus, so that they consume manufactured articles as well as transport. Hence, those electric shocks. So in a way, maybe hunting, the use of elaborate apparatus, you could say like an AR-15 is an elaborate apparatus. Especially some of the more expensive ones with really like fine machining. Like I have a $500 AR-15. It's not good. It's not great. It works fine. It's I think it's like a Diamondback. Not the point, but you have to use an elaborate apparatus, and you have to go to the country to do this. So manufacturing, keeping those factories busy, and you're going out to the country, consuming transport out to the country. So that's like going like skiing. I know you can spend like thousands of dollars on like skis, snow skiing specifically, on skis, like a snowsuit, like fancy goggles, whatever. So these elaborate apparatuses, but like I think electromagnetic golf is one of these things. They have some even more elaborate things than exist in this world. I see, said the student, and was silent, lost in admiration. I wouldn't admire that. There was a silence. Then, clearing his throat, once upon a time, the director began, while our Ford was still on Earth, there was a little boy called Reuben Rabinovich. Reuben was the child of Polish-speaking parents. The director interrupted himself. You know what Polish is, I suppose. A dead language. It's weird hearing Polish referred to as a dead language. So we're saying he mentions again our Ford, which is like Jesus to them. I don't know how much they mentioned it in chapter 1, but Ford is kind of like a Christ figure to them, a Messiah, a bringer of the word, so to say. They talk about time in before Ford and after Ford, like AF. I don't think I've seen BF, but I know AF is in here. I'm pretty sure AF is in here. So just draw some parallels there between like religious fanaticism, but incorrect religious fanaticism. So a dead language, like French and German, added another student, officiously showing off his learning. The fact that you have to show off that you know what French and German, that they existed, it's like no one, it's not much of a show-off thing to say Latin is a dead language, to say that like Proto-Germanic is a dead language, to say yeah, I don't know any. That's all I got. Maybe it is kind of impressive. But like Old Chinese, you just say old in front of anything. Old Russian, Old Spanish, like whatever the heck the Aztecs spoke. Navajo is basically a dead language. It's a very endangered language. So that brings me the question: do they is there a universal language like an Esperanto? I think Esperanto was coming around when this book was written. Is there like an Esperanto or is English? The point is there a language that everyone speaks? Is it a one globalized language? I don't know. And parent, questioned the DHC. Of course, because they don't have parents, so do you know what that is? There was an uneasy silence. Several of the boys blushed. They had not yet learned to draw the significant but often very fine distinction between smut and pure science. One, at last, had the courage to raise a hand. Human beings used to be... ... He hesitated. The blood rushed to his cheeks. Well, they used to be viviparous. Quite right, the director nodded approvingly. And when the babies were born, came the correction, well, then they were the parents. I mean, not the babies, of course, the other ones. The poor boy was overwhelmed with confusion. I want to refer back to the very fine distinction between smut and pure science. The idea of viviparous, just even mentioning viviparous reproduction is smut. It's improper. It's rude. The idea that two people come together and make a baby. Nothing rude about that in our society, because, you turn on the damn TV and there's a lot more rude crap. But the fact that that concept alone is so incredibly embarrassing. It's like if again, I don't know how old these students are, so maybe there is a, if they're like 8 to 10, maybe there is a fair point in saying, you know, any discussion of sex is weird, because you didn't feel comfortable talking about that with, especially like a figure you respect. But like if they're high schoolers to college even, then that kind of, you know, raises more questions. But the line between smut and pure science, just that concept is wild. In brief, the director summed up, the parents were the father and the mother. The smut that was really science fell with a crash into the boys, eye-avoiding silence. Just saying the word parent is like a swear word to them. It's like penis. Which, if you heard that word in a scientific context, you might laugh. Penis. Breast. Funny, right? But parents, mother, father. Ugh. That, I think I'm trying to see if I can remember, but I think the way they're raised, they don't have, there's no such thing as a nuclear family. I think they're almost raised in like a foster setting or like a community home setting where like there's a padre, so to say, cadre. I'm not sure, but like there's they're raised by administrators more than they are by parents. They're raised by like administrators and teachers. Like they're raised in a boarding school almost, maybe. That's how I think about it, because there's no such thing as a family. There's the community, capital C. The smut that was really science fell with a crash into the boys' eye-avoiding silence. Mother, he repeated loudly, rubbing in the science and leaning back in his chair. These, he said gravely, are unpleasant facts, I know it. But then most historical facts are unpleasant. It's like he talks about father and mother as some people might talk about slavery or the N-word. I don't like saying the phrase the N-word. I like to just say the word, but I'm on YouTube and I am... So, I'm trying to build something here. So, unpleasant facts. Most facts of history are unpleasant. Like, the nuclear household. Like, getting to pick where you want to work. Like, freedom. He returned to little Reuben. To little Reuben, in whose room, one evening, by an oversight, his father and mother, crash, happened to leave the radio turned on. For you must remember that in those days of gross viviparous reproduction, children were always brought up by their parents and not in the state conditioning centers. I keep doing this. I keep analyzing crap that is answered like half a paragraph later. State conditioning centers, like the orphanage, you know, teachers and administrators. Is exactly what I was saying. While the child was asleep, a broadcast program from London suddenly started to come through. I know where this is going. I like this part. So I'm not going to interrupt again until it gets to the point that I'm thinking. Because this is a good section. Forewarning. Why am I telling you it's a good section? Just listen, bro. While the child was asleep, a broadcast program from London suddenly started to come through. And the next morning, to the astonishment of his crash, the more daring of the boys ventured to grin at one another. Little Reuben woke up repeating word for word a very long lecture by that curious old writer. One of the very few whose works have been permitted to come down to us, George Bernard Shaw, who was speaking, according to a well-authenticated tradition, about his own genius. To little Reuben's wink and snigger, because he doesn't want to say parents, mother and father. That's like, he said crash earlier, wink and snigger. Wink and snigger. This lecture was, of course, perfectly incomprehensible, and imagining that their child had suddenly gone mad, they sent for a doctor. He, fortunately, understood English, recognized the discourse as that which Shaw had broadcasted the previous evening, realized the significance of what had happened, and sent a letter to the medical press about it. So basically like sleep learning. You know, the concept that you can learn something while you're asleep. Like, learn Japanese while you sleep. It's like a 6-hour video and it just says phrases over and over. Which is not terrible if you're awake, but you're asleep and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Many studies have proven it doesn't work. But this is a time before those studies. This is a time when conditioning was just coming about. So, who knows? This is what they thought. Science fiction, again. They have this level of research right now, and they're extrapolating upon it. What if this? What if that? You know, it's like when the first freaking spaceship went up, like Apollo, I don't care. We went to the moon. Then, like, all science fiction was like, okay, let's go to the next galaxy. You know, Star Trek, Star Wars, all these things based on the space age. You know, you have this level of science and you're extrapolating it outward. Kind of making a commentary on the science fiction genre instead of on this book. I'm sorry. It's fascinating. You know, I haven't gotten to that point I was talking about either. So I lied. I am interrupting. The principle of sleep teaching, or Hypnopaedia, had been discovered. It hasn't been discovered. It's been disproven. The DHC made an impressive pause. The principle had been discovered, but many, many years were to elapse before that principle was usefully applied. The case of little Reuben occurred only 23 years after R. Ford's first Model T was put on the market. Here, the director made a sign of the T on his stomach, and all the students reverently followed suit. Again, bastardization of Christian concepts, right? The sign of the T instead of the sign of the cross. You know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. What would that be? Woo! You start at the top and then you go down. It's a T. It's not as fun. It's wrong. And just since R. Ford's first Model T was put on the market, what is that, like the resurrection of Christ? Is that like representative of Jesus's resurrection of Lazarus? Is that representative of Jesus's curing of leopards? It's representative of a miracle performed by their Messiah, so to say. And yet, furiously, the students scribbled, Hypnopaedia, first used officially in AF, after Ford, 214. Why not before? ? 2 reasons. These early experimenters, the DHC was saying, were on the wrong track. They thought that Hypnopaedia could be made an instrument for intellectual education. We're getting to that point I was talking about. A small boy asleep on his right side, the arm stuck out, the right hand hanging limp over the edge of the bed. Through a round grating in the side of a box, a voice speaks softly. The Nile is the longest river in Africa, and the second in length of all the rivers of the globe. Although falling short of the length of the Mississippi, Missouri, the Nile is at the head of all rivers as regards to the length of its basin, which extends through 35 degrees of latitude. At breakfast the next morning, Tommy, someone says, do you know which is the longest river in Africa? A shaking of the head. But don't you remember something that begins, the Nile is the longest river in Africa, and the second in length of all the rivers of the globe. The words come rushing out. Although, falling short of, well now, which is the longest river in Africa? The eyes are blank. I don't know. But the Nile, Tommy, the Nile is the longest river in Africa, and second, then which river is the longest, Tommy? Tommy burst into tears. I don't know, he howls. That howl, the director made it plain, discouraged the earliest investigators. The experiments were abandoned. No further attempt was made to teach children the length of the Nile in their sleep. quite rightly. You can't learn a science unless you know what it's all about. That's another key point of this. He's saying you can't teach empirical facts. You can't teach someone, period, while they're sleeping. We know that to be just true nowadays. But he's like, you can't teach them facts. You can't teach them science, but you can teach them feelings. That's where he's going with this. So they're not using Hypnopaedia to make them super intelligent, hyper smart people. They're using Hypnopaedia to make them people that they want them to be. Whereas if they'd only started on moral education, said the director, leading the way towards the door. The students followed him, desperately scribbling as they walked, and all the way up in the lift. Moral education, which ought never, in any circumstances, to be rational. Silence, silence, whispered a loudspeaker as they stepped out at the 14th floor. And silence, silence, the trumpet mouths indefatigably repeated at intervals down every corridor. The students, and even the director himself, rose automatically to the tips of their toes. They were alphas, of course, but even alphas had all been conditioned. Silence, silence. All the air of the 14th floor was sibilant with the categorical imperative. So they're talking about moral education, and then they're walking through this hallway with the speaker saying, silence, silence. And that's triggering a conditioning that they were taught to, shut up. So even the director is being quiet. I wonder if Mustafa Mond has that conditioning. I don't know. You don't know who Mustafa Mond is. We'll find out shortly-ish. 50 yards of tiptoeing brought them to a door which the director cautiously opened. They stepped over the threshold into the twilight of a shuttered dormitory. 80 cots stood in a row against the wall. There was a sound of light, regular breathing and a continuous murmur, as of very faint voices remotely whispering. So we got kids and babies or whatever in their beds, lined up, and there's little speakers talking to them while they're sleeping. A nurse rose as they entered and came to attention before the director. "What's the lesson this afternoon?" he asked. We had elementary sex for the first 40 minutes, she answered. But now it's switched over to elementary class consciousness. Sex and class. Sounds like Germany before the Third Reich. The director walked slowly down the long line of cots. Rosy and relaxed with sleep, 80 little boys and girls lay softly breathing. There was a whisper under every pillow. The DHC halted and, bending over one of the little beds, listened attentively. Elementary class consciousness, did you say? Did you hear that beeping? That was my coffee pot. I got coffee. I'm sorry. I should have unplugged it. You're probably also hearing cars drive by because I picked the apartment overlooking the road. So our balcony has a decent view as opposed to looking at another apartment. But with that comes a little noise. So it's a trade-off. I'm sorry. Sorry if y'all are hearing that. Back to elementary sex. No, we're class education, right? Elementary class consciousness. Elementary class consciousness, did you say? Let's have it repeated a little louder by the trumpet. I think it's also funny. Things that do exist today and how they were predicted to look back then, like speakers, they have trumpets, because you can't really fathom a piezoelectric speaker. I think modern ones are piezoelectric. I don't know. You can't fathom a diaphragm or whatever when it doesn't exist. They got trumpets. At the end of the room, a loud speaker projected from the wall. The director walked up to it and pressed a switch. ... All wear green, said a soft but very distinct voice. beginning in the middle of a sentence. And delta children wear khaki. Oh no, I don't want to play with delta children. And epsilons are still worse. They're too stupid to be able to read or write. Besides, they were black, which is such a beastly color, spelled with a U. I'm so glad I'm a beta. What do they think of alphas, I wonder? There was a pause, then the voice began again. Alpha children wear gray. They work much harder than we do, because they're so frightfully clever. I'm really awfully glad I'm a beta, because I don't work so hard. And then we are much better than gammas and deltas. Gammas are stupid. They all wear green. And delta children wear khaki. Oh no, I don't want to play with delta children. And epsilons are still worse. They're too stupid to be able... The director pushed back the switch. The voice was silent. Only its thin ghost continued to mutter from beneath the 80 pillows. So, class education going about how you assume. Kind of reminiscent of like how the left talks of like race, right? And the concept of affirmative action too. Like, Asians, they're super smart. I don't want a lot of them in my college. You know? White people, they're pretty average most of the time. I don't want a lot of them in my college. Black people, they're stupid. I want them in my college. You know? To oversimplify that concept, I'm probably getting a community strike or whatever because of that. I got a community strike because I was like doing a bit in one of my... I got a video taken down for this. I was doing a bit about people who subscribe to Judaism. Is that an acceptable way to refer to them? I was doing a bit about that. I was like, I think I was talking as if I was somebody, and I said I hate those people, you know. And I got the video taken down because, you know, the YouTube scrubber doesn't know what context is. I don't care. And they took it down, so I can't like refute it. I can't the like bar where it says this video was taken down because of blah 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 whatever. Would you like to appeal this? And then it was like grayed out. Video has been deleted. You can't appeal it. I'm like, okay. So I think if I get another like video taken down like that, then my channel is like blocked for 3 months or something. It's stupid, but it's the way it is. I don't think it expires either. I don't think that one strike expires because I refuse to take their like re-education training. I think I did actually. I think I did it. I don't know. We'll figure out. Anyway, so. Only its thin ghost continued to mutter from beneath the 80 pillows. They'll have that repeated 40 or 50 times more before they wake. Then again on Thursday, and again on Saturday. 120 times, 3 times a week for 30 months. After which they go on a more advanced lesson. More advanced than elementary class education? What would that be? Roses and electric shocks, the khaki of deltas, and a whiff of asafoetida wedded indissolubly before the child can speak. But wordless conditioning is crude and wholesale, cannot bring home the finer distinctions, cannot inculcate the more complex courses of behavior. For that there must be words, but words without reason. In brief, Hypnopaedia. So it's saying that, like, to associate roses with an electric shock it's crude, it's imprecise. But to talk to someone while they're asleep is precise. But there's no rationale. Makes sense. Makes sense. No rationale. It's just what we want. But there is rationale in, like, the people who do it. It's like, for economic reasons. For economic reasons. The greatest moralizing and socializing force of all time. Hypnopaedia. That'll do it. The students took it down in their little books, straight from the horse's mouth. That's something I don't get. The director's a horse? I thought he was a person. Yeah, that was a joke. I know he's a person. I know that's a saying. What's more, the director touched the switch. So frightfully clever. The soft, insinuating, indefatigable voice was saying, I'm really awfully glad I'm a beta. Because, not so much like drops of water, though water, it is true, can wear holes in the hardest granite, rather, drops of liquid sealing wax, drops that adhere, encrust, incorporate themselves with what they fall on, till finally the rock is all one scarlet blob. That sentence goes hard. It's saying, we're conditioning you, not like putting drops of water on a rock where it will eventually dissolve it away and break it. We are putting wax on you to protect you. Something like that. I honestly, I don't know what they mean by that. Till at last the child's mind is these suggestions. Okay, they're saying they're transforming the rock, basically. They're making the rock look like something else. Additively instead of subtractively. Subtractingly. Till at last the child's mind is these suggestions, and the sum of the suggestions is the child's mind. And not the child's mind only, the adult's mind too, all his life long. The mind that judges and desires and decides, made up of these suggestions. But all these suggestions are our suggestions. The director almost shouted in his triumph. Suggestions from the state. Love that. He banged the nearest table. It therefore follows. It's kind of like the sex ed in California, where they had the carrot. If you know, you know. I'm not going to elaborate. Or I guess you could also say from the other point of view, like Louisiana requiring the 10 Commandments in a classroom, or certain book bans. The state is involved in your education, which I think is wrong either way. I don't think the state should be involved in your education, but I think if it's going to be involved, it should protect kids. I think it should not allow kids to see porn. I think it should preach the gospel. It should require Bible education, I think. At least from the standpoint that this country was built on biblical principles. That the West was built on biblical principles. But either way, I don't think the state should be involved in your child's education. And if you have a problem with it, homeschool your kid. If you're in a state that doesn't allow you to homeschool your kid, move. Or vote for someone who will allow you to homeschool your kid, which is almost always a Republican, because Democrats want to control your kids. A noise made him turn around. "Oh, Ford," he said in another tone, "I've gone and woken the children." Yeah, because you're yelling about suggestions from the state. It's fascinating because when... That was the end of the chapter, by the way. That's a fascinating statement that he can say that so proudly. These suggestions aren't just any suggestions, they're our suggestions. Suggestions from the state. And everyone thinks that's a good thing because the state has a positive connotation. They don't have stories like Ruby Ridge or Gordon Call or Waco. They don't have Project Northwoods, Project Paperclip. They don't have the crack epidemic. They don't have the lab leak theory, the lab leak thing that happened. They didn't have a coronavirus. They don't have all these things. Because the state is perfect. And if they did have those things, it would be good. And they all just view the state as this positive thing. So you can say that these are suggestions from the state. And you will be looked at almost as like a savior. Almost like good, you know? That's like saying these are suggestions from God. These aren't just our suggestions. These are suggestions from the Bible. That's a good thing to us because we see where the Bible has gotten society, where the Bible has gotten the West. At its peak, the West was freaking banging, man. But now people are unsubscribing from the Bible and we see it's declining. We see like a direct correlation with Christianity and like prosperity, you know? And it's just, they don't have that in Brave New World. They have complete and utter state control. And that's how they're prosperous. But they're prosperous at the lack of freedom. There's always this thing that comes up every now and then. There's security versus freedom. You know? It's like that balcony door. It has a stick that stops me from opening it when I don't want it opened. But when I want to open it, I have to bend over and pick up the stick. I would rather not do that, but it's over there and I don't know where to put the stick. That's like, it's secure, but I don't have the freedom to open that dang door whenever I want to without bending over and picking up the stick. That's really stupid. That's a really stupid example. It's like, I had a really good example of security versus freedom the other day. It was about guns, right? I was moving here. My grandparents didn't want me to bring my gun. I'm like, is that even an example? Because I'm more secure if I have my gun here than if I didn't. You know, I just have to make sure to point it up. You know, try and get underneath so that it goes through the roof instead of going down. That's the pro of living on the top story. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm kind of ranting, but that was a great chapter. We saw a look into what conditioning is, how they're conditioning these babies in their sleep and in their waking moments. We're seeing a difference in precision. Furnace just kicked on. You could probably hear that. We're seeing a difference in the precision of physical conditioning versus moral sleep conditioning. We're seeing just I love that this book starts with a view at the like conditioning headquarters, whatever the heck it's called. I love that it starts with this view so that you get a concept of where everyone starts. You get a concept that everyone starts the same. You know, in real life, we have some people come from wealthy households. Some people come from divorced households like myself. I'm actually both of those things. My parents are poor, but then I lived with my grandparents who are rich. My parents are divorced. My grandparents have been... I'm kind of both lower class and upper class. But not the point. We see in real life, everyone comes from a different background. Different countries are different. There's no centralized control over the world like there is here. But we have a lot more freedom because of that. There's a lot more perspectives on things than in Brave New World where there's just one answer. There's one guy at the top who controls everything. Mustafa Mond. I think he controls the world. Is he... I don't know if he's the director of the world or if he's like the director of a certain country, or it'll come up in the next couple of chapters, which I'm going to freaking read. Going to get to it. This is going up January 2nd. The next one will go up a week from there, January 9th, and then January 16th. And then, I don't know, I'll have a special video on, oh wait, never mind, I'm stupid. Special video on January 20th. Yeah, that's when Trump takes office. I was thinking of January 6th, which was the thing that happened, the thing that shall not be spoken. January 20th. I was thinking January 20th was January 6th. So I was thinking, but that's because J20 is a significant date, but not for the reason I was thinking. I'm yapping, guys. I'm gonna end this one. I probably forgot to mention something. But I think some interesting concepts were delivered today. Some interesting thoughts, and we're right about at exactly an hour. I'm happy about that. I didn't stop every single time I wanted to make a comment, and maybe that led to a more enjoyable sesh. So, check me out on Spotify. I'm going to start leaving my Twitter. I think I've left my Twitter in the past couple ones, my X in the past ones. I'll look at the descriptions and see what I got. I'm not sure how I was formatting this 2 months ago, but I'll make it all consistent. This has been Chapter 2 of Brave New World, and I'm going to get back to it now that I have internet and, a lot of time. I'm graduating high school early. I have one more week after Christmas break, and then I'm done. And then I have to wait until I get, a call back from any of the applications I put out to jobs, because, it's the end of the year. No one's going to hire you in the last, 2 weeks of the year, because then that's, paperwork for taxes that they have to do in 2 weeks again. And that's taxes I have to pay. I have to pay 2 weeks of taxes. You're crazy. I'm not going to do that. But this has been the Polity Pages. First episode in the new apartment. Episode 2 of Brave New World. The third episode of Polity Pages. Woo! Yeah, we're rolling, man. All right. You all take care. God bless each and every one of you. Every day. All right, I'm leaving. Ciao. I think that means hello in Italian. I don't know. Bye.